obviously money is not limitless, right? So
Right.
oftentimes when we go through these processes, the stakeholders or the departments will say, well, we can't have any downtime with this system, right?
Zero downtime. I hear
Zero
that a lot.
downtime.
Yeah.
Which is common, right? Like they can't do it. Like if they have any downtime and they don't have any alternative means of operating, then they're bleeding money, right? And so it's always a balance to understand, well, if they can't have zero downtime, certainly technology can provide that, but there's a cost attached to it, right? So you may say, I want zero downtime. Well, if that's the case, then we have to have hot sites, and that may cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they're like, well, maybe we don't need zero downtime. Maybe we can get away with maybe a day or two downtime, right? So balancing what the requirements are versus the cost that might give them that solution is always a challenge from a technology standpoint. And we go back to our trusted partner Axient here. Are the solutions that we've really sort of leaned on over the past 10 years or so, really because it is a cost balance, right? So you could do hot sites and you can do all these very expensive solutions, but they may not meet the budget needs, right, of the organization. So having a balance of products that give you that sort of quick recovery time in a way that doesn't cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, Leif, let me ask you a question with regards to how those products can provide you guys a quick recovery. Can you talk to us about how the technology works with local backups and cloud backups and the ability to kind of recover quickly using your systems?
Sure. With Axient X360 Recover, it's, we pride ourselves in being very flexible to that, based on each client has different sets of requirements, as you were mentioning. And especially if there's budget as a concern, that flexibility is even more important. So, whether it's traditional backup appliances or backups that you want to leverage. So if speed or network bandwidth is an issue, that's typically something that you would utilize. So if you want the faster recovery times, and that can be a concern with the network bandwidth, that's something typically those clients would leverage. If that's not an issue, they can go more towards the direct to cloud, which kind of bypasses having a local appliance and that kind of cost that is associated with a traditional appliance. And you can also take a leverage of that, you're based on the backup strategy that you utilize of having multiple copies of that data, that redundancy that you need to ensure that if something goes awry, whether it's a natural disaster, ransomware, whatever it may be, you can quickly be able to recover fast in both scenarios. And that's all made possible with Virtual Office, which is basically a way to ensure business continuity. So, for example, those last snapshots that you had for those backups, you can quickly virtualize those, within minutes, if not too much longer than that. Depending on the size of the data that you're working with, and get the business up and running, right? So maybe there's something that you need to do, and whether it's a fire that occurred and kind of made things impossible, you can get the business up and running so they can continue to get the staff working, maybe payroll, whatever it may be. And then also I mentioned previously with runbooks, right? If there's a certain infrastructure, certain application tool that requires a series of virtual machines to be spun up at one time, that kind of helps expedite that. To kind of touch on more of the direct to cloud approach, where you're kind of bypassing budget is a concern, you can actually leverage what they call local cache, which actually stores a portion of that data into a repository behind, whether it's a NAS device or a network file share, that securely, and be able to quickly recover from the cloud. So instead of going direct, pulling directly from the cloud, you can leverage that local cache to speed that recovery time, so you can get that business continuity up and running and recovered as fast as you can. And those are some of the approaches that partners have probably been taking advantage of because of the budget concerns. And also bandwidth and internet over the years have drastically improved to where that has made that possible.
Yeah, that's great. Dan, you were going to say something?
Yeah, it used to be completely cost prohibitive to rely on a solution that utilized bandwidth, both traditional like in the ground services, and also cellular services, but as Leaf kind of alluded to, that stuff's gotten way cheaper. Bandwidth has gotten cheaper in both modalities of it, and we can rely on things now that we probably couldn't have done 10 years ago, which is why we had the on-prem solutions. Number one, they were faster, but then you didn't have to exchange all this data over your internet connection, because that would have been cost prohibitive to have a large amount of data moving around any given time. Because if you're not paying for the biggest pipe, then it takes forever to get all the data out. And as the ability, bandwidth has gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, it has made the ability to operate a virtual environment in the cloud that's being used and being leveraged by different people. It's made that more agreeable. So it's been really fundamentally a big shift in backup technologies and what anybody can use. And always on internet too. Like 15, 20 years ago, you could have a backup infrastructure in the internet, but you really couldn't go everywhere to get to it. Now, anywhere you go to a national park and they have Wi-Fi. So that's really made Axient sort of what I call their second tier solution, their cloud solution, really, really attractive for us.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked around sort of the details of it. I think it's important to drive the point home that from a business continuity standpoint, we're talking about being up and going. Like if a system goes down, being up and going in the matter of a couple of hours, right? You could bring a system back online from a backup image within a couple of hours. Oftentimes that's within the typical downtime requirements of any system, right? If you can bring up a system within 2, 3, or 4 hours, not days, that is a critical component for business continuity, right? So by having a solution like that gives you continuity in the matter of a couple of hours is a huge deal, right? And the same goes for disaster recovery. If a physical site is down, and you need to leverage these same backups that have been pushed off to the cloud and have a virtual office, that product now gives you both business continuity and disaster recovery capabilities by having one solution. Being back up online within a couple of hours, as well as having a full site back online within a few hours as well, gives a company quick recovery times in either of these situations.